special shout out to Nova Scotia and the Maritimes. They had a
Yeah, they
really
got hit.
hard hurricane called Fiona. So we just want to, again, by the time you see this, it's like long over, but like we were thinking about you, and hopefully everyone that you know and love is safe, and the damage is not too bad. Um, and you had some amazing hurricane snacks in case like you needed to resort to those while your fridge was busted.
I heard great things about Soul. I never watched that either. I don't know.
Oh, that
I
was
just haven't got around.
wonderful. Soul
Yeah.
actually, Soul saved Christmas for me because I
Mm,
watched Wonder Woman um
not
2.
84. Oh,
Yes, dude. And
oh.
that was where I felt nauseous after that movie, and it was Christmas Day, and I went and watched Soul afterwards, and I was like, okay, my Christmas is saved because I was in such disgust at Wonder Woman 84. And I was really, man, that film, I've been looking forward to that film for I think 2 years because I think the first one came out in what, 16 or 17. Maybe it was 18.
Yeah, I think it was
I think it was 17.
18,
I think it was 7. Or
maybe.
yeah. Either way, it was a while. And Wonder Woman 84 was supposed to come out like I want to say like May 2020, and then it get pushed back to like December. Um, well, yeah, it was highly anticipated, and the previews even looked. I mean, the previews, the trailers looked good. But then we got what we got, and I'm just like, this is terrible and long.
I see. I remember something, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember seeing the trailers at one point, and I was like, hmm,
Uh-oh.
I
Yeah,
got, yeah, I got a little worried. But man, when I watched it, and I think I waited for it to stream. I think that
yeah.
was
HBO Max.
that window where, yeah, where things were launching at the same time.
Hmm.
And I just remember watching it and just being like, how did they go from? I mean, it- the end of the first Wonder Woman is a little dips hard, right? Uh, it's a little silly and whatever doesn't quite fit. But how do you even overall the movie is excellent. So how do you go from that film to 84? Like you just ruined
Because
so much.
and I'll just say it because what's her name's a hack. Sorry. Like she's not good.
Not it's not Kennedy. It's not Kathleen Kennedy.
No.
It's
Um I know, right? I have to Google it.
I can see her face.
He did Monster. Hold on. Uh Monster director.
Patty Jenkins.
Thank you. Yeah,
Patty
she's
Jenkins.
a fucking hack, man. Like, and I think she was attached to Thor too, and
Yeah,
Feige was like, "This is whack," and she's like, "Well, fuck you then," and left.
yeah. Which is one of the best things that ever happened for as not amazing as Thor 2 was.
And
I
then I think she was also attached to do a Star Wars film, and that got canceled. I think it
Yes,
was Rogue
Rogue
Squadron.
Squadron.
Yeah, good, whatever. I don't care. Like, I really care about track record now. It's not nothing personal. Make good movies, I'll support you. If you don't make good movies, fuck you. Like, no. Like,
Yeah,
you're all ego. I think the reason why the first Wonder movie was good was because Zack Snyder was still involved, frankly. And she had less control because she wasn't as proven. After Wonder Woman blew up, she's like, I can do whatever I want. Just like fucking Ryan fucking Johnson, dude.
yeah. Well, my beef um with the Star Wars sequels is more with, as much as I love him, is kind of with J.J. Abrams. Not because his movie was bad, but because he was supposed to be in charge,
He wasn't. Yes.
and then he just said, "Oh, go do your thing for the other two," and then like it ended up being a dumpster fire.
You know what I
Like,
think? I personally think he might have been the patsy for what's it for Kennedy and oh man, why am I okay? One day, you know what? I'm just gonna accept it. I suck at names. Bob Iger, dude. Like I feel like because Iger is the boss at the end of the day, and
yeah,
Iger but here's the other thing, right? I can't even get mad at like Kennedy that much because you know who put Kennedy, you know who chose Kennedy, right?
Yeah, it's Lucas.
Yes.
Yeah.
You did this to yourself, homie. So ah, so if so once you fucking give her the scepter, then that's it, dude. You know,
Yeah.
and I totally think that Abrams got thrown under the bus, and he hasn't recovered since. I think his career really took a hit from that.
Yeah, and it was all bad planning. Like if somebody, if and we always use Feige as the example, but if
Yes.
somebody had just been the Feige of 3 films, that's all you had, three
Oh,
films,
you had, yes.
and just had to say this is the through line, because you could tell they didn't know what they were doing with Ray. You could tell that wasn't there. You could tell they didn't know what they were doing with Finn. You could tell they didn't know. The closest thing that stayed consistent was Poe.
Yeah.
Like Poe was kind of always Poe, but like you said it, but like I didn't hate Finn in the first one.
No.
Like he was a little goofy, but like in a good way. And I felt like when that movie ended, I was like, those two should be the romantic interest of the trilogy. Like
Keep
I
talking.
liked them together. And then in the second one, they're like, nah, dog, he's gonna be in a coma. He gets, he gets some girl from the trash room, like who also got totally crapped on. I loved her, but like they totally like they ruined her character. Well, sort of. Part of that wasn't her fault
You
in the third
say
movie.
what you love, dummy.
Yeah, well, the third film, she got
Emoted.
well, no, she was supposed to have a bigger role, but
Okay.
all her scenes were with Carrie Fisher.
Oh,
And because Carrie Fisher died and those scenes weren't finished, instead of writing new scenes for her and moving her into the other places, they just left her out. So she's like barely there. And so like another person gets totally boned because there wasn't she like in love with Finn for a minute? Like they had their thing, like,
yeah.
and they're just like, yeah,
Yeah,
forget
they
that.
completely tossed it to the side. What I was gonna say though, and I mean, so like we weren't Facebook friends, but you would have seen it on my wall. Literally, when I came back from Force Awakens, I went and saw it at 5:15 in the morning because I was that excited about it.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
um, I was a little butthurt, and I'll tell you why. I felt switcherooed because all the promotional material showed Finn with a fucking lightsaber. Like I even was like reading like articles like Entertainment Weekly. So how does it feel to be like the next face of Star Wars? And he's like, oh yeah, blah, blah. Like they're really big. I'm like, oh my god, a black Jedi, really? Like as a kid,
yeah.
or not as a grown up kid. So and I even I was looking for my Lego. My nephew got me a Lego Finn, and the Lego Finn has a blue lightsaber.
Was it
So
really?
yes,
Oh
dude. Yes. So that's why I couldn't find it. Like, I mean, I know it's here somewhere. So I felt, and I still even have, and even the taxi tops like ads in New York, they show Finn with a lightsaber.
yeah.
Like, it was just so I was just like, that's, come on, man. Like, so
Well, and
anyway,
then
yeah.
they tried to fix that at the end, right? At the very
Oh
end, they're
yeah,
like,
at
"Oh,
the
maybe
very
maybe
end.
he's force sensitive,"
And
I
even
was,
like even the way like when Kylo senses like Finn in the beginning, like in that raid, and then when even what's his name goes, there's been awakening. Like I don't know. I feel like they could have both been force sensitive. Like it was just botched. But whatever, it is what it is. It's over. Maybe they could do a multiverse. Like whatever. Oh man, we have been abandoned.
yeah. And I think we've waited long enough. We'll kick off here and run through our stuff. And if Kim shows up, we can
The East Coast
quiz her. Yeah. Again, we don't need that West Coast trash. Welcome to the All Pop No Culture podcast. I am your host this week, Kevin. I am joined by Andrew.
East Coast baby.
Yeah, we got the East Coast crew going. Apparently nobody else. Kim was going to try and make it tonight. She may have been distracted by her love muffin. We're not sure. Pete is on dad duty, and I didn't see what Andy was doing, to be honest. I don't remember what he said he was doing. He was little silent today, so I'm not sure what he's got going on, but apparently it's better than hanging out with us, and I hate him. Um, and that's fine. So we can do this. Kim may show up if she finishes doing whatever she's doing. Um, but we got a show tonight. We got two things to add to the list this week. Actually, three. I also watched something this week. But I think probably in besides the big stuff, the coolest thing that it sounds like watched this week was Woman King. So you can just jump right into it. I'm curious about this movie. I love, and for some reason, dude, I cannot remember her name. The star of the goddamn movie.
Viola Davis.
There you go, Viola Davis. I love her. She's so awesome. I watched did you watch How to Get Away with Murder ever?
I know it's an ABC, but I have not watched How to Get Away with Murder. Viola, my bad. Thank you for correcting me, by the way.
It gets a little cliched and a little over the top after the first season, but the first season's really good. And it's not a bad show, but the best moments are definitely in the first season and maybe two. But she's awesome. She's so fucking intense. Like she's so good. She's good in The Help.
She won an Academy
So-
Award for that one.
Did she? Okay.
Oh yeah, she's actually won, I think, 3.
I think so too. That sounds right.
I think I took a screenshot actually. I could tell you. But yeah, no, I think as far as this, yeah, she won one for best actress supporting role for Doubt, then best actress leading role for Help, and then best actress supporting role for Fences. So that's she was nominated for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in 2020. So she is a very accoladed Academy darling. And if you're cool with me just kind of jumping right into it, I'm happy to. So yeah, this was one of those films I definitely want to give credit to. I'm going to be very spoiler free, but at the same time, I really want to paint the picture as to why this film matters and why I think that people should go see it. My own personal experience, like I saw the trailers for it, and I'm thinking, okay, Dora Milaje, Black Panther. I didn't know much about it. All I knew was she was a warrior. She's holding up a sword, and I'm like, yeah, cool. I'm gonna go see it. Man, by the time, actually, even a good 30 minutes into the movie, I was like, whoa, this is a lot better than I was expecting. And by the time it finished, I was thinking to myself, okay, in 2022, Everything Everywhere All at Once was my favorite film of the year. And I was thinking, okay, Academy Awards. Yeah, no. This is now probably the best film I've seen this year. I'll just kind of go into one of the most important parts of the film, and that is the cast. So I feel like a weatherman now. My hand is going to this actress right here. Her name is Sheila. Hold on, Sheila Atim. And you might have remembered her. She was one of the people in Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. She was one of the magicians, sorcerers, and she is basically like the advisor to Viola Davis's character. This actress right here is from South Africa. Her name is, I hope I'm saying it right, Tuso Vedu. I hope I'm saying that correctly. She is the breakout performance in this film. And I'm telling you now, watch this space. She is going to be a star.
How old is she? Looks super young.
Yeah, I think she's only 24. But
she looks even younger than that.
Yeah, but she portrays a teenager in the film. John Boyega is definitely, he's a king in this film, and he's a strong presence. He's great. Definitely a lot cooler than Finn ever was and ever will be. So, watch out for that performance as well. Viola Davis. You can't see right now my arm, but it's just a constellation of goosebumps. This performance, I can't say enough. You're getting nominated, and you might take the whole thing. And then finally, the Doc Holliday of this film, right here, Monica Rambeau herself, Lashana Lynch. We first saw her in a James Bond film. I think it was No Time to Die, I think. And also Oh yeah, I just said Monica Rambeau. She is also a fierce warrior, and she's like the trainer and the kind of sergeant of the warriors. The main plot of the film ultimately is this kingdom of Dahomey. They are kind of a segment of a larger empire called the Oyo. And the Oyo are in cahoots basically with the Portuguese. And what's happening here is there's a slave trade going on, obviously. And, you know, the the Europeans or the Portuguese in particular in this film were using the kind of wars between the two factions. Whenever there was a war or a battle, they would capture people and then they would give them off to the Portuguese to then be sold off into slavery. Um, the Dahomey do not want to be under the Oyo rule, and basically that's kind of like the main chess pieces of the conflict. A huge part of why this film really matters as well is it's so women led. Let me tell you a little bit about the background. So the screenwriters of the film are both women. And one of them actually went over to Benin. It shouldn't matter, but I'll just say anyway, they're not even they're white. Like they're not even, or maybe one's Italian, one's, but it's like it's a coalition of women winning. Okay, so in 2015 they start developing the film. One of the screenwriters then is at an award show that's going to be honoring Viola Davis. And she pitches Viola Davis about her idea from the stage of that award show in 2015. And that's how this all kind of started, and Viola became a producer. They tried to get this produced at a couple of different studios and they weren't getting any traction. Other studios were saying this isn't going to make any money. And then 2018 happens, February 2018. And of course, that movie is Black Panther. Once Black Panther shows Hollywood and the world that these stories can actually kind of really have traction and make a lot of money, then the film started really getting momentum. The director of the film is a woman. Her name is Gina Prince Bythewood. You probably know her best from a film called Love and Basketball, which came out like back in 2000, 2001. She's the director. The cinematographer is a woman. Basically, it's all women who made this film. And ultimately, what the film delivers from a thematic sense is perseverance, strength, overcoming adversity, and sisterhood. I mean, I really can't think of other words. I wish Kim was here because also when Kim was talking about strong female characters, I mean, look behind me. I think it's kind of a coincidence that like the one guy's behind my head, but these four right here are all extremely strong women characters that I think should be held up. Another criticism, I'm ranting here, but I hope you guys are liking what I'm saying. Another criticism that Kim had was how in She-Hulk, it's like, oh, it's so hard to be a woman, but you don't really see like any struggles. Man, this film definitely depicts like they don't have it easy, and but they kick ass, and that's what this is about. If you want a film that gives depictions of getting stronger, overcoming adversity, getting good, getting skilled, and you know, but being loving and not needing a man, but at the same time still cooperating and just kind of like being partners. This is the one. I mean, I'm gonna stop now because I know that you were interested in this, Kevin, and you can ask me any questions, but I'm just hoping that I'm generating some sort of excitement, some sort of enthusiasm for this film because I'm telling you, um, oh, one more thing. This is not a true story. This is historical fiction. So I think that one of the criticisms about this film is that, oh, it's not real, or the Dahomey kingdom was more involved with slavery than what this film shows. Well, it's edutainment, and that's what even Viola Davis's husband said. Basically, this is a gateway. So if you want to know more, here's your taste. Now do some more digging because this is not a documentary. This is a film, and that's what I think this film accomplished. And I could say more, but I'm going to stop now because it's more about back and forth conversation than monologues. Boom.
Yeah, I can say that I don't know much about it. Like I've watched the trailers. I know that it's at least a loosely based true story, historical fiction. Um, but I don't know enough about it. Like I haven't watched enough trailers. I know that John Boyega was really proud of it because he's been on this big, like, I'm only gonna do indie movies. I'm only gonna, you know, I'm gonna do more artistic roles, and he's trying to kind of change up his career a little bit, which I do not blame him for after getting the shaft from the Star Wars franchise. I don't blame him for trying to find things that he feels like elevate him in a way that he kind of got left out of. Um, but I know he was really proud of it. it I almost think if Viola Davis is in it, it's already good. Like, she's too good to not take, to not be picky about her roles. Um, so yeah, I'm excited about it. And the trailers that I've seen, like, how was the action? Because in the trailers, the action looked
Oh
amazing.
my God, thank you. I love being on a podcast. I love being on people who ask good questions. The action was incredible. Like, it was like, my goodness, like, I it was so good. It was so good. And I'm the kind of person who's not really a fan of like sword action because I'd rather see people get shot than stabbed. So that's kind of hard to watch. But yeah, people getting sliced up, people getting stabbed, but it looks real. It's very fast paced. There's clearly a lot of training that went into it, and it's believable. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you have sometimes where you can just, like, I'm not saying it's like nothing is as bad as like Star Trek back in like the 60s where like Captain Kirk's like hitting people with like this and this. Like, it's none of that. But and it's so fast in a way that it's believable, right? Because I feel like even in a real battle, like, yes, gory stuff's happening, but because it's so fast, it's not going to be like 300 where you see like blood splattering everywhere. It's just like boom, 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 down, but there's definitely some, cutting happening. The action's incredible. The battle scenes are incredible. They're very cathartic too. I mean, you see people, characters, bad people, who kind of get their comeuppance, and it's just so satisfying to see on the screen. I also think that in a way, the trailers don't do the film justice because all you get from the trailers is like, she's just a warrior king. Like, I mean, that's it. There's so much more to that. There's a story behind it. It goes into who the Agoji are, who of course were the inspiration for the Dora Milaje. And really, I don't think it's the biggest spoiler. It's kind of like this person is basically coming up in, like, she's the newest recruit, if you will, to this warrior group, and you're kind of watching her journey with these three being like her mentors. I really can't say enough. It's almost good to not go in not knowing what to expect,
Yeah,
because
I
you're blown
don't want to
away.
know too much because I definitely I like not being spoiled on at least some things. Like, some things, if they're a little cheesy or something, I can handle a spoiler there. But if it's something I think is gonna be really good, like, I don't want to know. I want those twists and turns and surprises and things like that to really land. So,
They will.
um, cool,
So that's it.
cool,
That's the warrior.
yeah.
I mean, the
I'm
warrior.
excited for it. I probably, like I said, probably won't see it in the theater, but only because travel for me is, to the theater is never, um, it's never easy, and I don't think I want to drive an hour round trip to see a movie by myself. Um, so
Shameless plug. So this took place in South Africa, and apparently the Dahomey were from a place which is now called Benin. And I did do an ancestry.com, and it turns out that, like, I was just curious, like, what am I? Like, what am I made up of? And apparently I am like all Benin and Togo. Like, that's all my genetic makeup. So basically I am like those people. Like, as far as like maybe not the talent, they're all probably whatever. Actually, I know they're all different, but I'm anyway, they're my people, so I had to like throw that out there. Anyways, I'm done.
that's awesome.
The one of the previews for the Woman King was uh Black Adam.
Black Adam.
And I gotta say, for the first time, I didn't hate it. I will say this though. I think that the worst part of the whole fucking trailer was the Rock himself. I felt like every line he delivered, it was like, it's the fucking Rock, dude. But everyone else around him, I was like, okay, I'm actually buying this. Like, the action looks pretty good. Like, I get Dr. Fate, I get Hawkman, I think. Like, these
Yeah.
are all like real actors, like they're good. but
Yeah.
then he says his line, I don't bow to no one or whatever. It's just like, oh my god, like, so it's like I mean, I'm gonna see it. I will see it, but
Yeah, I'm not going to see it in the theater.
yeah, well, I know for you it's a hike, so makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather see something else. I'd rather give my money to Halle Bailey's Little Mermaid than
Fair,
Black,
fair.
The Rock's Black Adam. I just have so many problems with the story of it. If it doesn't tie into to Shazam, then what's the point?
It's
You know,
basically their version of Venom.
yeah, like yeah, we'll see. I don't want to hate it. I actually like. I feel like I always sound like I hate The Rock. I don't hate The Rock. I like The Rock a lot. It's just The Rock is The Rock, and every movie with The Rock is a movie with The Rock, right?
And I
Like,
think superhero films, you either need someone who can, like an unknown, who can kind of become that character,
mhm,
or you need a character, someone who actually fits. Like I feel like RDJ was a perfect Tony Stark. That fucking was amazing, you know? Um,
mhm,
Chris Evans actually, I mean, I was skeptical. I didn't think Chris Evans could be that commanding, but he fucking did it.
right?
Um, just trying to think of
Who
who else.
Chris Hemsworth was basically nobody.
He was a nobody, and that's
You
why.
know.
Just like Star Wars,
Hmm.
like that was like Star Wars was what taught me the nobody formula. Like get people who are nobodies to be in these big epic films, or like Harry Potter, same thing. Like
Yeah.
that's what you do.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
if that's what we've got um for Woman King, we can take a just a hard right turn. I kicked off, and you've watched some, so we can kind of go back and forth a little bit. Um, is On Netflix. They dropped the new Jeffrey Dahmer series with Evan Peters, and so I watched the first episode today, and I wanted to watch more. My kids were around, and it's 100% not a show that you watch with any kids in the room.
Correct.
Um, it uh, it's some dark, twisted shit.
Yeah.
Like it. Um, I've seen it get a little bit of crap for um being maybe almost kind of romanticizing Dahmer a little bit too much, like because it's Evan Peters and he's a little better looking and all that. Um, so there's definitely been concerns around it. Um, but I mean, he's certainly not the hero of the story. He's creepy as shit. And the first episode is such a slow burn. Like for everything that happens in it, you could have easily made that like 15 minutes, but it's an hour, and it's atmospheric. Like it sinks in. Like you feel all the things they're explaining to you. Like when they're talking to you about his apartment, they're talking about how bad it smells. They hit that a couple of times, so like you get that in your head, and then like when that first dude shows up, and you're like, dude, don't you know it smells bad? And then he's like, oh, it smells bad. Like all the shit. Like you feel like you're in it. I'm excited because I like Niecy Nash, but everything I've ever seen her in has been like pretty heavily comedic. And so I'm excited to see what she does. Um, as the neighbor in the upcoming episodes, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're going to bounce back and not necessarily forward for most of this, right? This isn't about the trial of Jeffrey Dahmer. This is about Jeffrey Dahmer becoming the Jeffrey Dahmer we know, right?
Yes. Although there are 10 episodes, and I'm actually up to episode 3, so I'm not gonna spoil a lot of that here. But I love that you mentioned Niecy Nash. I never really even heard of her until really you just mentioned her by name. But I think one of the things that, well, first of all, Evan Peters has disappeared into this role. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
You were Quicksilver, and then you were like, but now you're like, no, you are Dahmer. And it's funny you actually say he's better looking than Dahmer, because I actually think he's creepier looking in the role for me than Dahmer. And I always thought Dahmer looked a bit like Kurt Cobain and vice versa, but that's just me. Anyway, but no, I think one of the most important things that this film actually shows is it's a bit of an indictment on how, like, on a systemic level, like, these things were kind of allowed to happen, in certain, like, communities. Like, because Dahmer was, of a certain, I'll just say, phenotype, like, he was able, like, the when you see his interaction with the police on
Hmm.
certain situations, like, they totally give him a pass, where I feel like if he had he been someone else, like, it wouldn't have happened. And when these neighbors, like Nisi, are, like, complaining to the cops, they're not taking them seriously.
Hmm.
And you'll see, I think, in episode at the end of episode 2, I think, you'll see something that will just really just damn it. So I think, some people are wondering why this is being made, and I'll tell you why. Because this happened before the internet. Now, I remember seeing the Dahmer thing happen back, I want to say 91 is when the story broke. So I actually knew about it. But there's people to this day that I know who don't know much about it. And, and I personally didn't know the extent to which, like, the authorities were being kind of told something's wrong and they weren't doing jack shit.
Hmm.
So I think these kind of stories need to be told. And, and frankly, when you get to see more about his home life, it just makes me, how do I put this? I just feel like, wow, here we go. Whatever. And gonna get serious in the podcast. And I know it goes into, like, civil liberties and shit, but why is it that, like, you need a license to drive a car, but anybody can become a parent? I'm sorry, I know it's jacked up, but it's like, the kid never had a chance. I'm not blaming the parents, but I'm saying they didn't help. When you see what he grew up in, they didn't help at all. And I just, it's jacked up, man. So you'll see it. Again, it's not a sympathy thing, because people have grown up in jacked up situations and didn't end up killing people. So I'm not saying that, but I am just saying, parenting is a very important job, and they failed him badly. So that's my rant on Dahmer so far.
Yeah. Oh, so far in the first episode, we only see his dad at the very end. And it's really interesting. At the very end, I couldn't quite tell if when the dad was sitting there, when they finally left the dad alone, like if he was kind of psyching himself up to look like emotionally upset, or if he was actually upset. Like,
I thought the same
so,
thing.
yeah, because it really had this feel of like, I need to
Mhm.
look upset about this, and I'm not. Um, and I don't know if that comes up later. Like, I'll see. But definitely had a feel to it. It's interesting too that other than extras, I mean, it's a pretty small cast for the first episode, right? You've
Yeah.
got did they ever say the guy's name?
Which guy?
The black guy that he brings back to his apartment?
Oh, I don't think they did actually.
So I mean, but you've got those two. You got
Yeah.
Jeffrey Dahmer, and you got that guy. You got the neighbor who in this episode is pretty ancillary. She has an interaction with him once, and then at the very end, she's like, "I fucking told you guys." But otherwise, that's it. You got the two other guys at the bar that were with the guy.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, it's small, and it's crazy to think that this is relatively true, right? Like they're not.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
no, I
think
think this
they're.
is 100% true. I think this is based on what he told them.
Yeah. So like what they found in his apartment when they caught him, you're like, if anybody had just walked in, like there's a bloody mattress, there's pictures in the like the bucket in the corner, like the shit that they found. You're like how could someone live like that and not get caught for so long? And I think that's the point, right?
It's the point.
Um, but it's crazy, and you almost miss it. But there's a scene when he first gets back to the apartment, he opens up the fridge to start pouring the beers, and then at the bottom of the fridge, there's just a head in there. Like he, it's just sitting there, but he opens it and closes it so matter of fact that if you're not looking down, if you don't
I
catch
missed
it,
it.
yeah, but it's right there. And so it's wild. It's wild to think that that this was real. You know, uh, yeah, it's crazy. And like he ate people
Yes.
because like before when he's trying to get that guy. down and calm. He's like, let me listen to your heartbeat because I'm going to eat it. And you're like, oh, fuck, dude. Like, I mean, if you say that to me in that situation, at that point, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to run because I'm either going to die right here, right now, or, or I'm going to get away. But if I die, like, if I don't do something, I'm going to die. So I can die doing something, or I can escape. But fuck no, am I not staying? And I wasn't sure where this took place in the story. So when like he's trying to escape and he's getting, and they're starting to rumble, I'm like, maybe he's not going to get away. Like for as much of a fight as he's putting up, I was like, is this like victim number like 2 or 3? Like, are we early on in the story or what? Um, so it's a trip. It's a real trip. Um, and I know a few things about the overall story that make it more interesting further down the road. So I'm really curious to see it. But it's like I said, it's kind of heavy. It's a little atmospheric. It's a little it's definitely a mood. Like
Oh yeah.
it brings you into the situation really, really tightly. So
Oh,
uh
sorry.
yeah. Oh, I was gonna say I don't know that you can necessarily watch a lot of them at once, you know, because I think after a little while it'll mess with you a little bit.
That's precisely what I was gonna say. I was inboxed by a couple friends or put on my wall exactly what you just said. Gotta watch it in doses. Dude was so evil. I can't take it. For some reason, fuck it. I think I am able to binge it. But I think it's just because I have such little faith in humanity. So I feel like this is just validating what I'm thinking. So it's like, but no, that first episode is really tough to watch. Just because, like you said, like I also didn't know where in the story this was. And if anything, I think the more of a fight someone puts up, the more tragic it becomes to me if shit doesn't work out. So
Yeah, yeah,
that to me was like, oh, you were so close. And then like I'm not gonna ruin it for anybody who's watching it because I think that's part of the experience, the dread. Like, is this motherfucker gonna make it or not? Um
yeah.
and then the whole time I'm just thinking to myself, and again, I know it's easy, whatever, but like anybody who knows me knows, like even at work, like the boss has said, okay, as an icebreaker, if there's a zombie apocalypse, like why should we keep you in our party? And what I said was, I have a very high aversion to danger. So if like I'm the one who's gonna say, hey guys, like let's go that way. I heard something over there. Like let's not do that. Like so if some dude, if I was, of that persuasion, was like, yeah, like let me take you back to my place, and he's all fucking dude.
Mm,
As a matter of fact, the moment I smelled that shit, I'm out of there. Like, why would you go? What the fuck, man? Anyway, so yeah, you just don't put yourself in those bad situations. But yeah. Anyway, great. Fuck it. I'm gonna say it. Great show because I think people just need to see that the human experience isn't all sunshine and rainbows, and that I think when you
mhm.
see that, it makes you a wiser person and less likely to be a dodo bird and get taken out prematurely.
Yeah, yeah. There's something about somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer though, with the audacity to walk up to 3 dudes and know that for this to work, he can only take one, right? Like, so you go in without like a total plan because you you have to be ready that if all 3 of these guys are like, oh, let's go do this thing, then you got to come up with some other way to do it, right? Like, oh, let's go back to your place, blah blah, blah, whatever. So like he needs it to go a certain way, and he's, for as psycho as he is, he's able to make it go his way, right? Like he gets the one guy's uncomfortable like a lot, and he still runs the show. So it was definitely a trip. Like I like I said, I'm curious to watch more because I know at some point they get into, he had some problems in college and some other problems. So um I'm interested in that stuff too. um and I'm curious to see, you kind of said it, but I'm curious to see where the parents fall into all of this, because it it'll be interesting because you don't end up like you don't end up like that without at least, you know, some kind of issues in your home, probably. I don't know that there's ever been a serial killer whose mom and dad were just like doting and, you know, gave you everything and loving and hugged you every day and did everything. And then you're like, you know what? My life is so perfect. I need to go kill somebody. But I suppose if you're psycho, then you do what you do, right? Um, so yeah, it was it's a show. it is it is definitely heavy. It's not bad. It's well made. It, like
Oh
I said,
yeah.
definitely has a feel. It feels like it feels like you're in that era.
Oh yeah.
Um, um, and much like the next show that we'll talk about in a minute, um, it it's well made. It's well acted. Like, you know, from the minute it kicks off that it's going to be a solid show. Like, you know, with some shows you can just feel that. You can see the way that it's made. You know it's going to be good. It may not be for you. Like, I can see a lot of people starting to watch it and being like, "No, I'm good." Like, some people need their comfort shows, and this is not that show. Um,
No.
yeah, and I'm not sure. Like, I know we have the subset of people that are really into the murder podcasts, right? I don't know that this falls into that. Like, this is such a, or at least feels like such a character study on Jeffrey Dahmer, that I
It
don't know that it's
absolutely
a,
is.
yeah, that I don't know that it meets that itch that you have when you're like investigating the murder, like they do on the podcast, right? When they're talking about all the things that went sideways, but maybe it does. I don't know. I've actually, for what it's, for whatever it's worth, I've never listened to a murder podcast, like, even though they're like the biggest things ever. Um, like, what's the one, the dude just got out of jail, the biggest one like ever. It was
Yeah, I'm not
uh
really big on the whole crime stuff either, you know.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
think what drew me in, frankly, is, well, number one, everyone's talking about it, number one.
Hmm.
Number two, it is fascinating again that you've got this guy who happens to be gay, you know, preying on primarily people of color in the hood of Milwaukee, like, and was able to do it for like years unchecked.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, he's like, he might be the last real like serial killer. Besides, of course, like, I think the 70s was the big boom for it, like John
Hmm.
Wayne Gacy, and I think there's somebody else. There's just, you know, Son of Sam, all them. But he was like, and he came out right when Silence of the Lambs came out too, which is crazy, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so yeah, man. But again, like, I gotta give it to Evan. I think he's doing an amazing job. As I don't think of him as Evan Peters. I think of him as Jeffrey Dahmer.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. He's definitely not, you know, our fun loving Quicksilver or anything like that. He's a scary fucking dude. If you're interested at all in like kind of the history of the serial killer, Mind Hunters is on Netflix. And that's super good. And it's essentially about the task force that put themselves together and basically came up with a term serial killer, because they started studying it in a different way. They had a different term for it at the time. It was, oh, shit, I can't remember what it was, but it was not serial killer. It wasn't pattern killer, but it was something like that. Somebody that like killed sometimes, or cases that they thought were tied together, but they never really thought of
Like
somebody
alphabet
as
killer,
like,
maybe?
no. It was just like the term serial killer didn't exist. It wasn't somebody that mentally had to do it that way. It was just somebody that maybe killed a few people. And so this, they started getting into the psychology of it and all that stuff. It's super good show. There's
Nice.
only, I think there's only 2 seasons. I know they're still open to doing a third, but it's like, it's a production to undergo to get everybody together and do it. Um, but it's really good. It's
Is
really
it
good.
like a
If you
documentary, or is it like,
it's not a documentary, but the people are, I think the characters are the real characters. I
cool?
know the serial killers they talk to. There's some actually great footage of like the real serial killers, and then the actors that portray them on the show, like side by side, and the work that they did to get pretty accurate. It's pretty impressive. So I would say if you like Dahmer enough, this is Mindhunter. I would say is not as dark. It's not quite as creepy, but it's interesting to see like where this term came from and why they're studying them and what they're learning way back when the stuff was all starting.
Duly noted,
Um,
man.
yeah, I think Son of Sam does show up in it. I think they interview him later, but it's a trip. It's really cool. Um, but yeah, that's uh that's Dahmer. Watch it if you like creepy weird shit. If you don't like creepy weird shit, it's not for you. I'll tell you that right now. There's not. Yeah, there's no redeeming qualities to it. It's not like you're gonna have a giggle at it. It is there's no light point, and at least in that first episode, there's nothing that you're like, haha, good joke, Jeff.
Yeah.
So yeah. So with that, we'll turn to something that's I don't know if it's more fun yet, but it's definitely more entertaining. And that's our man Cassian. Oh, I'm picking his nose. Our man Cassian Andor back here, star of the show Andor, which dropped 3 episodes right away, which is pretty wild. And they're not short. They're not 25-minute episodes. They're, you know, 38, 40. Oh, excuse me. 38, 40 minutes episodes. They're relatively long. Um, but this is what I was talking about, and I said it in the text chat. Like, you get a couple minutes in the first episode, and you just know by the way things look, by the way things feel, uh, by the acting, just by the couple of side characters and him in the first few minutes. You're just like, okay, this is going to be good. You don't know what it's going to be. You don't know the plot. You don't know anything, but you're like, it's going to be good. And it is. It's definitely a slower burn. You're definitely learning about this guy for sure. Um, Figuring out his world. Um, but yeah, it's good. I wish Stellan Skarsgård had showed up a few minutes earlier, or maybe an episode earlier, just because I like him so much.
Same.
Um, but it's good. We've got our cute droid. We've got
Very
his mom figure, who
yes.
is Harry Potter's aunt in the
I
Harry
love
Potter films. She is the boss on Killing Eve.
Mm.
So she's great. She's super talented. I like her a lot. Um, and yeah, it's a cool show so far. We're just getting into the meat of it by the end of the third episode. It's really neat though, and I think you said the third episode is what really got you. In the
Yes.
third episode, we get to see that community kind of rally. We get to see the way that um, see the Empire in a way that we haven't seen before. Ooh, yawning tonight. They've got you've got all these people that are not fond of the Empire. Maybe they're not going to stand up and just straight up fight. But at the same time, like, they're not stoked about the Empire, and it shows. I mean, it's cool. I dig it.
Yeah, I so it sounds like you might have like read my comments on the show. I finally like I really like the show. And what you said about Stellan, dead on. Like I there's nothing I've seen Stellan in that I didn't like. Even crazy film called Nymphomaniac. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but it's
Heard of
by
it? Yeah,
Lars von Trier.
yeah. Lars
Film
von
is
Trier,
nuts,
right?
or try. This film is nuts, but he's plays a key figure in that film. But no, I think the one character actually before Stalin that I actually paid attention to actually was this deputy inspector for the Primor Authority named Cyril Karn. He to me is like a clone of Kyle MacLachlan,
He
Moadi.
sure looks like him, huh?
Yeah, and I'm not the only one. I was online and there's lots of comments out. This guy's a dead ringer for Kyle MacLachlan. Because basically this dude, just like Krennic in in Rogue One is ambitious. You know, he wants to make a name for himself. You know, he definitely has a bit of a inferiority complex thing going on.
For sure.
But he at the same time he just and I think those are kind of like the scariest villains to have, because they literally like they are so invested, they're such true believers in their cause, they'll stop at nothing to achieve their goal. We saw that with Krennic, and we're certainly seeing that with this guy. So while the first two episodes I do think were kind of a slow burn, and I think some people might even find them boring. I know I actually kind of did. Every time he showed up on screen, and when he's told by a superior, hey man, like when the Empire shows up and they ask questions, less is more, dude. Like, you don't want them poking at our shit. And but of course he wouldn't listen and decides
Yeah.
to like investigate the deaths of the dudes who are fucking with uh Andor.
And
And
I love that. I love that first scene when the guy really is just like, it's like, look, it's better for us if nobody asks questions. Like, he's like, make it an honorable death, make it look like, it's like, but just make it go away because we got shit to do.
yeah.
Um, and it was actually kind of a cool take. Jeez. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see all these different aspects, to see a more um I don't know how to describe it, maybe more like real life work environment inside the Empire too, right? Like, these people that are looking for Andor aren't just sitting there and just he just pops them on the screen and everything works. Like, they're digging through shit, like they're going through a process to figure out who he is. And it's cool. It's really good. I like that we're slowly getting his backstory.
Kamari.
Yeah. And and how he ends up where he ends up is definitely interesting. Like,
So
he
I can
could.
say this. Oh, sorry. Like,
Oh, no, go ahead.
did you like that parallel between like when he was waking up as a kid with a mom, but then he wakes up, or like he's looking over at Stellan, and
Yeah.
it's just like I
Yes.
loved that juxtaposition.
Hmm.
Because in the beginning of the Canary stuff, I was kind of like, okay, I don't know why I care about this Canary stuff, but then when I see once the mom figure shows up and she's the one who kind of like rescues him, that's when I go, oh, okay, now I have a reason to care for this old woman who's like scolding him and telling him how to live his life. I'm like, who are you and why are you telling him how to live his life? Well, now I know why, because she's basically his mom.
Yeah.
Um, that was amazing. His girlfriend, or not his girlfriend, but I feel like they might have had something before until she got
Yeah. Like, I
it's
thought she,
unclear.
for a second, I almost thought she was his sister, but when I really like put together what's going on, like, she's not, he's looking for a sister.
Yes.
That's not her. So, but they do kind of have that relationship that maybe they hooked up once or twice and then
Yeah.
decided that,
Better friends.
yeah, exactly. And they have some banter that says, yeah, they actually are friends. They're cool. Um, her boyfriend is a toolbox. He
And got
sucks.
what he had coming.
Yes, yes, he did. Yes, he did. And
uh,
but yeah, if nothing else, if you just go from the production quality,
oh my God.
it's so good. It looks so good. This is um the first Star Wars show to not use that like super stage that they built for Mandalorian. Have you ever seen that?
No, I actually haven't.
So find some making of stuff for Mandalorian and Obi-Wan and the other ones. They have this crazy huge set of screens so they can do everything in one place, and it looks so real, but they're literally like TV screens around the entire set.
Huh.
And it's amazing, like when you see them start to use it to work on it. It's ridiculous. Like, it's something like out of Star Trek or out of Star Wars. Like, it doesn't seem like it should be a real thing, and it totally is, and it's super
Like a
amazing to see.
holodeck type situation,
Dude,
basically.
it almost feels like that. Yeah.
Nice.
It's pretty wild. So um I think it's cool to see this one be out of that box, although most of it takes place, in smaller locations, right? Like, they're in rooms and stuff. Um, but yeah, I like that you get the feel that this community really liked him.
Hmm.
You know, like they get the either. Well, the thing that I'm not clear on is like if they would do that for anybody in the community, right? Like if what they did was for anybody, or if they see him as something else.
I think yeah, one of the things I like about Andor and his world is that I do think there's a bit of a political statement being made here. I think that the Premor folks are kind of like they're a corporation. Like they're not even really, they're like paramilitary. And I feel like the folks are kind of like I don't want to say socialist, but they're just more like we are the people, you know? And so I am inclined to think that they do band together and they protect their own. And that's why they even said that we don't like the blues. Like, you know, like it's no, we band together. It's a very us versus them thing, just because those blues have tended to kind of they must have really been bad to them, you know? So yeah, and I think with Rogue One, it was the same thing. It wasn't just about one special person. It was about a coalition. And I think that that's the theme of his whole story. It's about a movement. This is the seeds of the rebellion. And the rebellions are built on hope. And they're built on hope of the people. So uh yeah, I think really the first three episodes was just one giant pilot. No pun
Yeah,
intended.
yeah, it really is. I think they had to drop it like that because you get to the interesting point um near the end of that third episode.
And the
I
action's
think
good too.
the action is good, but I think if you just dropped the first two episodes, people would have been like, I don't know, it's a little slow, it's a little boring. Um, but when you get to that third episode, and basically everything that happens through that third episode, um, it
I have a
hits pretty
question for you.
hard. Like, yeah,
Why didn't Andor kill Kyle MacLachlan when he had the chance?
I don't think he's a killer by choice. I think the only reason that he killed the guys in the first place was because he accidentally killed that one. So there's no way out of that, right? There's no way that he can look at this guy and say, "Sure, I'm going to let you go, and you're obviously going to cover for me," and blah blah blah, right? Like he lets that guy go, he's screwed. Um, so like I said, I
That's a
just
good
feel
answer.
like he didn't he wouldn't kill if he didn't have to, or if his life wasn't on the line. And that situation it was the other way around. He had full control of that situation. He had control of that guy. You know, it was going to be what it was going to be.
I love how Stellan's
Um,
like, wait, I'll do it. Like
yeah,
he didn't
yeah.
care.
He's like, no, man, fuck him. Um,
uh,
and but yeah, because when if you watch the same character in Rogue One gets cornered by this dude and he has no way out. It's this situation. He's cornered. This guy isn't going to let him go, so he kills the guy in Rogue One in that like first scene that he's in.
but it's funny because I was talking to a coworker, and the coworker who was definitely a contrarian for sure, he was saying he didn't like Cassian for that scene. But I think really what it was like that guy was like I think an informant of some kind, but
Hmm.
he was like, you know, the Empire guys were coming, and he couldn't leave that informant living because he could like rat on him. So he basically shot him to just keep him quiet. Like he wasn't even like a bad guy. He was just an informant who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he had to like eliminate the loose ends. So I think that's consistent, if I'm remembering that correctly. That yeah, I think that if Cassian has to protect himself, unfortunately, he will kill your ass to do so. But to your point, because Kyle MacLachlan was not an immediate threat to him anymore, and he already knew who he
Hmm.
was. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know, man. I think it's just kind of like the same way like Obi-Wan should have killed Vader when he had the chance. I think that
Yep.
sometimes you
Yeah.
gotta just fucking kill these people. Like, sorry, like,
Yeah. That
but then
or
there'd
that
be no
shit comes
story,
back
so
on you. Like,
whatever.
yeah, if you're living the shady life, you know, you got to be able to be ready to do the shady thing, and if you can't, it's going to come back and get you.
There you
It's
go.
always going to come back and get you. Um, so I mean, obviously it's not because he's going to survive until he blows up an entire or dies on an exploding planet. But um, who knows who he could lose along the way, right? That's I think is probably the more interesting part of this story. Isn't going to be what happens to him because we know where he ends up. But it's the people around him that we're meeting that are going to be the ones most affected by the things that he does. And that's kind of what makes the show interesting, I think.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm definitely excited for more. Let's see, it drops on Wednesdays, right?
That sounds right. And it's funny because
Yeah,
I think that even for the next show that we do, we'll be able to talk about this and Dahmer again because, there's more to watch and
yeah.
discuss. But they're both off to really good starts, I think.
So yeah, so well, I mean, with that, knowing that this dropped on Wednesdays on Disney Plus,
Hmm.
on
Another one.
Thursdays, a show we have covered a few times now, uh, is She-Hulk. So we've got another episode of She-Hulk, and I feel like for me, it's not changing my mind at all. I think She-Hulk is just at this point is just She-Hulk. Like I don't know. Um, I don't know. Do you feel any different about the most
No,
recent episode? I actually liked this episode a little more than some of the other ones so far. Um, but what's
I,
interesting is I can't tell you why, and I almost don't even remember the episode. Oh, it's the
basic.
wedding episode.
Yes.
Yeah, the self-contained wedding episode, and I don't know, man. I really struggle with what the show is.
Basically, at this
Yeah,
point now, in my mind, I'm almost just this isn't really, I mean, it's MCU, but it's not really MCU. It's basically just like a fun little show with MCU kind of like uh dressing on it. Like it's like it's not it's just there. It's but
yeah. So there
yeah,
was. It kind of reminds me, like, because it's so like, and Andy made the complaint about it, but I get why they have to do it. But they bring in these characters that don't matter, that we're being introduced to as superheroes because they're in the superhero law group, but they're characters we never heard, like this Mr. Immortal or whatever he is.
yeah,
Like, who gives a shit? I mean, the guy does a fun job playing the character. I've seen him in other stuff. He's decent. Her best friend, who's kind of the law office assistant, again, is somebody that's not supposed to be stealing the show, is totally stealing the show. She's amazing in this episode. Um, and it just, you can't bring it, like, you can't have them defending, Doctor Doom or somebody like that. Like, it doesn't make sense. So you have to bring in these little characters that don't matter. And it reminds me of a show that was built in the DC universe a few years back, and it had Vanessa Hudgens. It had God, what's his face from Firefly? That was the voice of K2SO in Rogue One.
oh yeah, 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 I know you're talking about.
Oh, God, I
Yeah,
love him too, and for some reason, I'm totally blanking on his name. But anyways, he was Bruce Wayne's cousin,
okay.
and so he ran this. I think it was a news agency or something like that, and there were superheroes around them. There's superheroes happening. They were doing research and
Alan
stuff.
Tudyk.
Yeah, there you go, Alan Tudyk. And it was a fun show, and it was actually entertaining, and it was funny, and it didn't really live in the DC universe, but they discussed the DC universe, and that's kind of what this is.
Yeah,
Like, I'm getting more and more to the, like, why is it even here kind of thing. Like, it just,
yeah,
the whole attraction to it was um that it was going to tie into the larger MCU. That's what everybody wanted to see. We had the Hulk, and that was the excuse people kept making. Oh, these things keep showing up, but like, it's kind of not doing that anymore. Like, it's just there, and like the whole wedding episode thing with Titania, just, I don't know. I don't know. And like, who are the bad guys that are trying to get her blood to experiment? Like, did they get it somehow? And uh, yeah, I don't know.
yeah. Maybe we just like yeah, maybe we just give She-Hulk like a good 3 minutes of the show and then we move on. That's like all to
Exactly. Like, I
say.
yeah, for those that care, Daredevil didn't show up this episode, so you don't get that. Um, and and yeah, you didn't have Wong, you didn't have Madison. Like, it's just the
I
things
mean,
that
it's
are fun
like
and
it
interesting
was
aren't there.
basically like, oh my God, I'm going to my friend's wedding. I'm always a perpetual bridesmaid. My friend is a bridezilla who doesn't want me to be She-Hulk because I'll take all the attention. I get super drunk. This guy starts talking to me. Oh my God, he likes me for me. The mean girl bridesmaids made me do stupid shit. Then I basically Titania baits me into a fight. Then I turn into She-Hulk. Then we fight at the wedding. But then all of a sudden, like the bride is okay with me being She-Hulk at the wedding. Like,
Yeah, then also she's super excited about it. You're
yeah,
like, what? Like,
so that's
yeah,
She-Hulk.
yeah. It's just it's so problematic. And like I said, for me, like I wish it was more. I guess I wish it was more like a Boston Legal or The Practice or something like that than uh what they even what they build it as, which I knew what they built it as, but it still doesn't quite land like the Ally McBeal feel. Ally McBeal was an hour-long show.
Yes.
So like how do you make that comparison? You still like they never build up the court cases enough. Like it's not really a court show. Like this entire wedding episode had no courtroom. They just had some chicks angry at a dude and um you know and so they settled that in a fun and creative way, like that was fun or whatever. um but I don't care. Like they're like that whole thing doesn't tie into the MCU at all unless Mr. Immortal is going to join the Avengers. Like what's the point?
He
Like
doesn't even, I mean, all he can do is not die. Like
he's
that's William
not die.
Power.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take it. It sounds kind of cool, but like as far as superheroes go, like what he can get out of marriages by faking his own death. That's like a superpower.
I will admit, I laughed a little bit when he just like ran out the window. That was pretty funny.
Yeah,
Just like,
but it was funny, but it was predictable. Like I knew it was going to happen, and
uh,
so I was like, okay, like yeah, all right. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'll finish it for sure. I don't know
yeah, we
that
have to.
when my rewatch comes, I don't know that I'll be excited to um watch it again. But I probably will. If
Good
the
for
time
you.
comes.
I won't ever.
But yeah, it's at least till this point has no reason to rewatch other than like if they cut it into the Madison show with her sidekick in there, maybe just give them their stuff. I'd
I think
rather
my
watch a
favorite,
show about Wong and Madison.
I think my favorite episodes were the first one and the Madison one because I liked the
Hmm.
first episode. That was actually pretty good. But I think it's because
Yeah,
what's his name? Because
yeah, because it was all
Bruce is
about the
there.
Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
All right. So we love She-Hulk. Highly recommend it. Go watch it, everybody. That's what I'm getting from this. So on to our last regular topic for now. And because nobody watched Lord of the Rings this week in our group, we're all at least an episode behind. And no one here is to prove us wrong. So we will talk maybe 3 episodes next week, Lord of the Rings. But what we do have is Game of Thrones, our final episode of the young lady era of Game of Thrones. And it was a doozy, man. It was a wedding episode, which Game of Thrones does very well and very twistedly. Um, yeah, it was a trip. You got some insight into poor Sir Kristen really is. He is a sensitive young lad who somehow really believes that he's going to take this future queen
By
and
four.
just run off and marry her and live off the land with their sheep or something. I don't know what his vision was, but didn't make a lot of sense. um and it was obviously the first time he got any action
Yes.
because he was whipped.
He was sea struck, as they said
Yeah,
in the show.
yeah.
I'm not gonna repeat the word, but yes.
But
Yep.
yeah, so he didn't take it well. Damon's back in there doing the Damon-y things.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, poking it, poking the bear every now and then, stirring shit up. You get Allison realizes that she was lied to, so she gets
But it's on the
she
green.
yeah, she puts on the green. She comes in hot. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. There's a lot of stuff going on in this one.
This is actually probably this might be my favorite episode, just because even though not a lot happens in terms of like action, a lot happens in terms of like just dynamics. You know, again, I think Allison really emerges as a force, I think, in this episode. Her entrance, the iciness, the way Damon doesn't even rise for her, the way that the look she gives to Rhaenyra, yo, I got you, like I'm watching you, like it's on. Um, it was great. The Kristen piece, like you know, man, um, dude, like you guys know this about me. Like I am so anti acting on your emotions, and this guy like legitimately like failed so hard on that test. But at the same time, I'm not really sorry for the guy who got killed, because it's like, what are you doing? You don't know this guy. Like, why would you walk over? And I do think it was like taunting. Like, why would you taunt him? Like, you don't know him. He's a fucking Kingsguard, you know? And you fucked around and found out. And that was that. But damn, like, but damn, like to do that at a
So
wedding?
and he just fucking just like wailed on that dude.
Like,
And
what?
but like part of it, I was just like, what are you even upset about, dude? Like you know the score. You know that your boyfriend is not into her, right? Like the dude she is marrying will bed her when he absolutely has to and not anymore, right? So if you're like his side piece, that if you're that dude, you're good, man. He's not leaving you. You're gonna be the boyfriend of the king. Just
I
like
think I think what Kristen was mad about though,
no, not
um,
but not Kristen was the other guy, the
oh,
new the Valerian guy's boyfriend. Like why was he even like, because he looked pissy that whole time the wedding was happening.
which one,
And I was
Kristen?
like, no, God, what,
Oh,
who's
but
the
so the
Valerian?
other guy.
Yeah, the
Okay,
boyfriend of the Valerian, the guy that she's marrying, the boyfriend of the guy she's
got it.
marrying.
Wait, you think the boyfriend was pissed? Huh?
Yeah, oh, he looked super pissy like the whole time, and I was like, dude, you're coming out on top here, dude. You're gonna keep getting the action, and the guy's gonna be have even more power than he has now. So yeah, it was a crazy, wild episode.
Yeah. Um, what else happened? I mean, obviously, there's a guy named Laris who's the new kind of like advisor, and I think he's going to be end up, kind of on team Alicent, and Damon's going to be marrying Lena most likely, which I think is going to be interesting. Um, Basically, all the chess pieces are being set up for this
Mhm.
war, and apparently, I've seen the Black Queen and the black and the green. I think those are the two factions. We're gonna see like the sons of Alicent, interacting with uh, you know, uh Rhaenyra's people. So and then of course, what's his name? I thought for sure that Viserys was a goner. Like when he started coughing
Yeah,
and
yeah. I
blood
thought
came
I
out on
thought
the
he was
table,
dead at the
I
end.
thought that was it. So when we see him in the next episode, I'm like, okay, I guess he's still alive, but damn,
Sort of.
like
He looks like shit going
he
forward. But I mean, he makes it because I mean, we're jumping a good probably 10 years, I think, like give or take. I mean, because Aegon looks teenagerish, you know. And the guy that plays Aegon in the next few episodes is the son of David Tennant, a
Yes.
uh, and so that's kind of a cool little nerd thing to have out there, right? Like David Tennant's been around; he's pretty cool. So to see his kid out there doing it, it's kind of neat.
And his
Um,
uncle's was a Doctor Who as well. So that's a
that's
cool
right. That's right.
connection.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting because I think Alicent is going to be a character to really watch because she technically wields no power, right? I mean, as long as she's married, she's the queen, so
Right.
she does a little bit. But if he dies,
Oh yeah, then it goes to
she
yeah.
all the power she has goes to her own son. But where it really goes, at least as of right now, as long as the king is still alive and hasn't changed his mind, actually goes to Rhaenyra. So, um, yeah, it's definitely like to its name. It's a Game of Thrones. Like we're playing, we're watching the chessboard move around. It's crazy. And I think it'll be a brawl. It'll be a nasty, nasty thing. I think we're gonna see a whole lot of just scheming left and right. Um, but like, did we see by the end of this episode who the new Hand of the King is?
Yeah. Yeah, we totally did. He's the I don't know what his name is, but I know he was one of the guys who was talking to the king even like in the last episode. I think he's a Baratheon, I think. Um
Okay.
but he's totally there. And then also I just read up on something. It's his name is Joffrey. So Rhaenyra's lover, Sir Joffrey Lonmount, surmises Kristen is Rhaenyra's paramour. When Joffrey smugly suggests guarding each other's secrets, Kristen becomes enraged, perceiving his words as a threat, and brutally kills him. So it's like, but his name was Joffrey, so it figures his name is Joffrey. One thing that we
Yeah.
did mention on this podcast, though, but I think is definitely um, worthy of at least giving lip service to, is man, when Lady Rhea Royce, Damon's wife, is on the horse and is like talking smack, and then like I had to rewind. Like, did the horse just out of the blue just knock her off? Like it was an accident? Like I
Yeah,
couldn't tell
I
what
can't
happened.
tell if he got lucky there
I think he
and
totally
she
got
was
lucky
thrown, or because I mean he was right up next to the horse. Like if he did something that we didn't see, like to
because he
spook the
was just gonna
horse, like
he wasn't
yeah,
even gonna kill her, dude. Apparently, in the Game of Thrones world, if you call someone Craven, you're fucked because basically when a little kid like disemboweled that guy, he's like Craven, I'm God, you know. And then of course when she's like Craven, he then picks up the rock, like yo, man.
right.
And what a waste because she was an ugly man.
Yeah, she was cutish.
But not anymore. She's she's a little caved in now. But no, it was a lot of things happened in that episode. A lot of battle lines were drawn. Um, and when Allison saves Kristen from committing suicide, that's when we know that he may find new meaning and new purpose in life by serving
Hmm.
her because she spared his life when she could have had him killed.
Hmm.
Oh, and also even like when she's like, so I understand that Rhaenyra has been. It was me. Like, what are you doing, man? Like,
Yeah,
what's wrong with you? Ah, he plays his role so well. Um, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like because like Game of Thrones airs like on Sunday nights and we record these on Saturday night, I almost feel like we're way behind. It's almost
yeah,
like
it does
we
feel
talk
like it.
about it. It's like we're already like so far behind.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm already looking forward to tomorrow night, see what happens. But yeah, maybe this
So
is for those who don't watch the show, or for those who do watch the show but don't mind talking about it or thinking about it or reminiscing about it. Either way, it's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. It's I we've said it a few times, but so far, I mean, it is Game of Thrones, like prime Game of Thrones. Like we're in the good stuff right now. So I'm excited to see what comes next. The time jump's going to be cool. We get a few characters that have been kind of nobodies so far step up. The little girl that uh that he was supposed to marry, that the king was supposed to
She's
marry.
beautiful now. I feel
Yeah,
weird for saying that.
yeah. Well, it's a different actress, so we're cool, right? Like she's
Yeah,
not 12 anymore; she'll be 20 something. So,
yeah.
she's the girl that's gonna play her is very pretty, um, and yeah, we're gonna get. I mean, we're gonna have some turnover. We're gonna see new characters in some of the roles that have existed and stuff like that. So, um, it's interesting that they're gonna skip 10 years of Damon's life,
Yeah.
because I feel like he'd be doing a lot of shit behind the scenes over the course of 10 years. So I'm curious how they'll cover that.
One thing I'm
Um,
excited about too is Miguel Sapochnik is
mhm.
directing the next two episodes. So I have a feeling that these
Mm,
next two episodes are going to be some pretty badass episodes
yeah.
since he's the showrunner or was the showrunner. And he did the first episode too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So cool. Well, that's everything we've got, unless you got something hidden in your tool belt there.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. This is
Yeah.
another nice and tight episode. Uh
Yeah.
no, we might even be down to like an hour and 20 or something. This is nice.
This one's going to be shorter for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's fine. I think it's a good one. We covered some good stuff. We hit the new and cool stuff in the beginning, and then got to our old and busted stuff at the end. Uh, save Thrones for last, so we finished strong. Uh, but yeah, I'm stoked. I want to see Woman King. Uh, I'll watch more of Andor. Sorry, Dahmer. I don't know that I necessarily want to watch a Dahmer. Like it's not like I'm like, yay, it's Dahmer time. But at the same time, like I'm definitely curious about it, so I'll watch it. Andor, I think, is a must watch. I'm
Yeah.
stoked. I can't wait for that. Next one, and yeah, and go from there. So yeah, with nothing else, then we'll say, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If this is on the audio, if Pete ever does that, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment away. We still only have Queen Leah there commenting for us. She keeps me busy on the YouTube comments. It gives me something to do. Would love to see more of those. And yeah, with that, have an awesome week. We'll see you next week with more of the usual stuff and hopefully some new stuff. I think I had a couple of things that I was going to check out this week, so hopefully come back with some new stuff next week and maybe even some old faces that nobody really likes to see, but we can still put Pete on here. So with that, have an awesome week. Yeah, it's funny. You actually posted something, said that Sinister was like the scariest movie of all
Yes.
time. So I'm like, fuck, I guess I'll check it out.
Oh, I definitely want you checking it out. I have a
It's
really
on it's on Peacock, so
even better. I have a really active imagination, so I'm very like kind of I'm thoughtful about what horror I expose my brain to. If it's satanic, I might just opt out. But if it's not satanic, I'll watch it.
well, what would really creep me out when I watch the trailer, the hardest part is that it's like kids, because it's a family and there's little kids, and so I don't know if the kids get possessed or what, um, but there's definitely something related to kids, and I was like, that creeps me out more than anything else, like creepy ass like murder kids.
So I take it you didn't like Children of the Corn?
I've never seen Children of the Corn.
Okay, that was a good one. And definitely some satanic shit going on there. But for some reason I could deal with that one.
On your posts, have you watched Midnight Mass yet?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember if it was you that hadn't watched it or if somebody that posted on yours that hadn't watched it.
Oh yeah, no.
That
That was
Midnight
like
Mass
literally
is
the first recommendation I ever watched. I watched of yours.
mm,
Loved it. It'll
so
remind me
good,
of the holidays.
so good.
So good. Haunting for sure. I mean,
Oh,
just
both of them, Hill House and Bly Manor.
yeah, that I have not seen Hill House. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, no, it's like it's funny how like the real monsters in Midnight Mass were kind of the humans themselves, you know,
For
like
sure,
that. I
for
love
sure.
that type of shit.
I'm still blown away. The dude did not win an Emmy or something, Golden Globe. Like Linklater, Hamish Linklater, the guy that played the priest.
Oh yeah,
Oh, dude, he was so good.
I loved his voice. It was just so like, I
Yeah,
couldn't really do it that much, but like he's so like he really believed in what he was doing and he didn't think he was
yeah.
real and like, oh my God.
And then Mike Flanagan, the guy that did that, he's got a new one coming out in October, The Midnight Club, which is based on the Christopher Pike books from when we were kids. They were like the R.L. Stein kind of books. So it's a YA horror series.
Okay.
Um, and it's supposed to be. It looks pretty dark. It looks pretty good. And Flanagan at this point like has my complete trust with horror films. Like he's just fucking brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then he's doing a version of The Fall of the House of Usher that's filming right now. It's got everybody in it too. It's Mark Hamill, um, Raul Coley's in it again. He's the guy that played the sheriff in Midnight Mass. Um, his wife's obviously in it. She's in all of them. There's some other fucking names in there that I can't remember, but it's just cast wise, it looks super good.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've only again I the name Mike Flanagan just has weight. So like I trust
Mm-hmm.
it. You know what I mean? Like I at this point he's carte blanche with me. Like I will
Yeah,
check out
yeah,
everything.
yeah. His name shows up, and I'm like, I'm in. Thank you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you see that James Earl Jones is retired?
I did. And I think it's actually kind of amazing, but scary, but amazing that AIs now can basically just take your fucking voice
Oh
and
yeah.
do you. And like and the thing is, I remember in Rogue One, frankly, it was him doing the voice, but I didn't really like it as much. Whereas I think in Obi-Wan Kenobi,
Yep.
it's the AI doing it, and it just sounded better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's depressing because like I don't know if you're like a big voice actor person, but for me, like Frank Welker, who did
Oh
Megatron.
yeah.
So when you hear Frank Welker doing Megatron now, it's like it's kind of painful. It just not doesn't sound like him anymore. Like he's trying, but it's not him. And I so people are human, their voices change. And Peter Cullen luckily still sounds like himself, but Megatron is just like, don't do that anymore. It's okay. Get
Yeah.
it back.
Let that go. Well, it's like Starscream.
Chris Latta,
He
he
was
died.
also the Cobra Commander,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And then, but like no take on Starscream has ever been right to me ever since. Like I don't
Correct.
care where they've done it. Like it's just
Yeah.
he was so good at being fucking weaselly
Yes.
and like everything. Like
Perfect
and
voice.
he Starscream was perfect, and he's never been good since there was one animated series. Like I think it was CGI animated. It's a long time ago now. I don't even think my boys were born. My daughter
Beast
might have caught
Machines or
some of
Beast
it.
Wars?
No, it wasn't Beast Wars. I'd have to look it up. It's it's
Okay.
it's it's not recent, but it's also not like ancient. But I think it took place on Cybertron.
Then it's probably Beast Machines. Maybe because
They
Beast
weren't
Machines took place on like
beasts. Like
okay, they weren't Beasts. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But
I'll have to
G.I.
find it.
Joe
But like,
Resolute had Cobra Commander and a guy named Chris Adler did the voice, and that voice for Cobra Commander was actually pretty decent. So
hmm,
I feel like if Chris Adler did a Starscream, that could work because it was basically like in Resolute, it was like, yeah, I was playing a bitch, but I really wasn't a bitch. You know, like that was just me playing a role to like keep you guys off balance. But now I don't feel like doing that anymore. So yeah, I'm gonna nuke Moscow. Here you go. Boom, Moscow's fucking gone. Like that's that is I think that's the one I think maybe you saw it with Bazooka dead like in the first episode. So they weren't fucking around.